Sabbath in redemption. You see, there was a reason why Jesus had to remain in the tomb on the Sabbath. Exodus 16, 19 to 21. And Moses said, let no one have any of it till morning. In other words, when the manna was picked up any day other than Friday for Sabbath, nobody was supposed to save any manna for the next day. Verse 20. Notwithstanding, they did not heed Moses, but some of them left part of it until morning. And what happened? When they left it any other day except Friday for Sabbath, what happened to the manna? Two things. It bred worms and it stank. And Moses was angry with them. Let me ask you, was this normal bread? No. What happens with normal bread if you leave it from one day to the next? Nothing, really. And even if you leave it a week, it just gets moldy, but it doesn't breed worms and stink. What is it that breeds worms and stinks? Flesh, decomposing flesh. That's right. Now notice what happened when the manna was picked up on Friday for the Sabbath. Exodus 16, 23 and 24. Then he said to them, this is what the Lord has said. Tomorrow is a Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath for the Jews. Let me ask you, why is the Sabbath called the Sabbath of the Lord? Because the Lord kept it first. It's His day. And then He gave it to man. God says, it's mine before it was yours. Notice. Then He said to them, this is what the Lord has said. Tomorrow is a Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake today, and boil what you will boil, and lay up for yourselves all that remains to be kept until morning. So they laid it up until morning. This is on Friday when they're doing this, as Moses commanded, and it did not, what? Stink, nor were there any what? Any worms in it. Now, what was God trying to teach through the manna episode? Because the manna did not decompose when it was saved from Friday to Sabbath. Well, we need to know what the manna represents. Let's go to John chapter 6 and verse 51. You see, most commentators have missed this messianic dimension of the story of the manna. God is not only trying to teach that we're supposed to keep the Sabbath by the manna episode, He's trying to teach that Jesus kept the Sabbath when He died on the cross, and He rested in the tomb, and His body saw no corruption. Notice, John 6 and verse 51. Here Jesus is speaking. I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world. What does the manna represent? The what of Jesus? The flesh of Jesus. Well, let me ask you, when Jesus rested in the tomb on the Sabbath, did His flesh see any decay or decomposition? No, because He was the living manna. You see, as the manna, when it was picked up on Friday, did not decompose on the Sabbath, Jesus died on Friday, and His body did not decompose on the tomb or in the tomb on Sabbath, because He was the living manna. In fact, notice the prophecy that we find in Psalm 16, verses 8 through 10. This is not just something off the top of my head. The Bible teaches it. It says in Psalm 16, verses 8 through 10, this is a messianic prophecy. I have set the Lord always before me. Because He is at my right hand, I shall not be moved. Therefore my heart is glad and my glory rejoices. My flesh also, notice, my flesh also will what? Will rest in hope. What happened with the flesh of Jesus? It what? It rested in hope. Why did it rest in hope? For you will not leave my soul in Sheol. I like the New International Version. It says, you will not abandon me to the grave, nor will you allow your Holy One to see corruption or decay, as it says in the New International Version. What happened when Jesus was put in the tomb? His body did not see what? Decay. What would have happened with a normal body? It would have begun the process of what? Of decomposition, but not the body of Jesus, because He was the living manna. In other words, what God was trying to teach was this, that when Jesus rested in the tomb on the Sabbath of Exodus chapter 16, His body would see no corruption because He was the living manna. the emphasis falls upon the fact that he was going to rest on Sabbath from his works of redemption, and his flesh would not see corruption.